What if I told you that the church has hidden Jesus' true magic for centuries? I'm not talking about illusion tricks, but knowledge so powerful it could make you immortal and master of your own universe. In the Gnostic Gospels banned from the Bible, Jesus wasn't just a humble shepherd. He was a master alchemist, revealing transformation secrets that put divine power directly in your hands, not in institutions. The church spent centuries trying to destroy these teachings because they threatened their control. When you decode this forbidden message, you'll never see reality the same way again. Are you ready to awaken your inner Christ? Few people truly understand the depth of Jesus' teachings. You see, the spirituality we know today has been shaped by centuries of limited and often intentionally distorted interpretations. What most people don't know is that behind the parables and miracles was a master alchemist who mastered the principles of personal transformation. This view of original Gnosticism reveals a Jesus very different from the one presented in conventional church pulpits. He wasn't just a preacher asking for blind obedience, but an initiate into the ancient mysteries who taught profound techniques of consciousness, awakening through symbols and metaphors. Jesus, contrary to popular belief, wasn't interested in creating dependent followers, but in forming masters capable of achieving their own inner transformation. Wow, that changes everything, doesn't it? The alchemical techniques he used weren't for turning literal lead into gold, but for the transmutation of human consciousness. When he talked about being born again, he wasn't referring to an external ritual, but to a process of symbolic death and rebirth that occurs in the person seeking true enlightenment. Think about it. How many times have you felt you needed to die to old habits and be reborn into a better version of yourself? That's exactly what Jesus was talking about, but in a language few completely understood. The occultism present in Jesus' teachings wasn't about black magic or obscure rituals, but about knowledge of the universal principles governing human transformation. For goodness sake, the very word occult simply means hidden, knowledge hidden from those who aren't ready to receive it. When Jesus said, "To those who have ears to hear," he recognized that not everyone was at the same level of consciousness to understand his deeper messages. In practice, this means you can read the same words as someone else, but extract a completely different meaning from them, depending on your level of inner awakening. Try this exercise. Reread one of Jesus' parables, imagining he's talking about internal alchemical transformation, and you'll see meanings you never noticed before. The true magic Jesus taught was the ability to transform reality by transforming oneself. It wasn't about tricks or illusionism, but about understanding the laws of consciousness and how it manifests in the physical world. When he turned water into wine, bread in, for example, he was symbolically demonstrating how to elevate consciousness from a basic state, water, to a more refined state, wine. The same principle can be applied to your life today. When you elevate your state of consciousness, situations and people around you also transform. Have you noticed how a simple, genuine smile can completely change the environment you're in? That's the magic of internal transformation, reflecting externally. The alchemical process Jesus taught had clear stages, just like traditional alchemy. Calcination, facing challenges; dissolution, letting go of what doesn't serve; separation, discerning what's essential; conjunction, uniting opposites within; fermentation, metamorphosis process; distillation, purification; and coagulation, manifestation of the new being. These awakening stages aren't sequential, but cyclic and continuous in our personal mythology journey. You might be going through several of these phases simultaneously in different areas of your life. For example, while dissolving old beliefs about relationships, you might be purifying your health habits and manifesting a new career. The important thing is to recognize that all these transformation processes follow universal patterns that Jesus deeply understood and tried to teach through metaphors that transcended his time. Have you ever wondered why some texts were left out of the Bible? Well, the history of Christianity we know today is just a fraction of what really existed. Gnostic Gospels like Thomas, Philip, and the secret book of John reveal a radically different vision of Jesus and his teachings. These texts, which the Church tried to destroy for centuries, present a Jesus who wasn't interested in creating an institutionalized religion, but in awakening the divine potential within each person. This authentic Gnosticism perspective threatened the power of religious institutions because it put individuals in direct contact with the divine, without intermediaries. Just imagine the impact this would have. Ordinary people discovering they could access divinity without needing permission or approval from anyone. The controversy around these texts is no accident. They were deliberately excluded from the biblical canon because they contained what we might call spiritual dynamite, teachings so revolutionary they could completely overthrow established power structures. Man, no wonder the Church did everything to hide them. In the Gospel of Thomas, for example, Jesus says, "Whoever drinks from my mouth will become as I am, and I myself will become that person." This suggests a unity with the divine that goes far beyond the worshipper-worshipped relationship that the Church promotes. In practice, this type of spirituality means recognizing your own divine nature. Try starting your day with the affirmation, "The same divine consciousness that was in Jesus is in me," and observe how this changes your perspective on yourself and the world around you. What these forbidden texts reveal is a path of self-discovery and awakening that can be followed without depending on external authorities. They show that Jesus wasn't creating dependent followers, but indicating a path for each person to find their own inner divinity. Heck, this challenges the entire hierarchical system built in his name. When the Gospel of Philip says Jesus frequently kissed Mary Magdalene on the mouth, it's not just reporting an intimate relationship, but symbolizing the direct transmission of esoteric knowledge without intermediaries. This teaches us that the deepest knowledge doesn't come from books or authorities, but from direct experience. You can apply this in your life by asking yourself, what do I know from my own experience versus what I merely accept from external authority? This simple exercise can be the beginning of a profound journey of spiritual liberation. The Gnostic Gospels also reveal a much more inclusive and egalitarian vision than the version that became dominant. They show that access to mysticism knowledge wasn't based on gender, social position, or any external characteristic, but on the readiness of consciousness to receive it. This was absolutely revolutionary for the time. Imagine a spiritual movement where women like Mary Magdalene were treated as equals and even as leaders. In the Gospel of Mary, discovered in 1896, we see the male disciples questioning why Jesus would entrust secret teachings to a woman instead of them. This dynamic still resonates today, doesn't it? Think about times when valuable ideas are dismissed just because of who presents them rather than their actual content. Trying to evaluate messages on their merit, regardless of the source, is a Gnostic practice that can greatly enrich your life. The suppression of these Bible secrets couldn't completely erase them, and their rediscovery in the 20th century, especially, with the Nag Hammadi manuscripts in 1945, rekindled interest in Gnostic Christianity and its profound messages of personal transformation. It's as if these teachings were just waiting for the right moment to resurface, when humanity would be ready to understand them again. Today, in the full information age and questioning of traditional authorities, these ancient texts find receptive ears among people thirsty for a more direct and experiential spirituality. The interesting thing is that you don't need to completely reject tradition to explore these teachings. Many find value in integrating aspects of Gnosticism with other spiritual practices. Try reading one of the Gnostic Gospels with an open mind and compare it with the canonical texts. You'll probably be surprised by the new dimensions that open up in the figure of Jesus and his message. One of the most powerful and transformative principles we can find in Jesus' teachings is the idea that there's a perfect correspondence between the upper and lower planes of existence. As above, so below, as within, so without. This ancient, Hermetic axiom finds surprising parallels in Jesus' words recorded in the Gnostic texts. In the Gospel of Philip, he says, "I came to make the things below like the things above, and the things outside like those inside." Goodness, this isn't just a nice phrase, but a key to understanding how human consciousness interacts with reality. This Gnosticism principle reveals that the world we experience externally is a direct reflection of our inner state. Your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs aren't simply inside you. They literally shape the world you perceive. The idea that the kingdom of heaven is within you takes on a completely new dimension when viewed through this lens. Jesus wasn't talking about a distant reality or a post-death state, but about a fundamental change in how we perceive and interact with the world. Our internal spirituality determines our external experience. It's like a movie projector. The film you're watching, your reality, is determined by what's on the film reel, your consciousness. In practice, this means that if you want to change your external circumstances, you must begin by transforming your internal state. For example, if you constantly feel like a victim of circumstances, try identifying the internal belief that supports this perception and actively transform it to one of greater personal power. Observe how your external reality begins to reorganize itself to reflect this new inner vibration. This principle of mirroring between the internal and external was central to Jesus' mysticism teachings, although it has been largely ignored by later interpretations. When we understand that we are co-creators of reality and not mere passive observers, the entire game of life completely changes. My goodness, it's like discovering you've been playing chess your whole life, when in reality, you are the board itself. The Bible controversy that arises from this is evident. If each person has the divine power to transform their reality from their consciousness, what is the role of institutions that claim to have exclusive authority over the divine? In this context, personal transformation becomes a revolutionary act. It's fascinating how this understanding can be applied immediately. Next time you get annoyed with someone, ask yourself, what is inside me that's being reflected in this situation? This simple question can transform conflicts into opportunities for personal growth. The correspondence between microcosm and macrocosm that this principle establishes also explains why Jesus emphasized heart and intention purity so much. If the outer world is a reflection of the inner world, then true social transformation begins with individual transformation. The awakening of consciousness isn't just a personal spiritual exercise, but a necessity for collective evolution. This directly contradicts the approach of many religious institutions that emphasize external conformity instead of internal transformation. Look, when Jesus said, "Love your neighbor as yourself," he was articulating this principle of unity and reflection. The love you cultivate internally is what you can offer externally. Try this exercise. Before interacting with challenging people, consciously cultivate a state of peace and compassion within yourself. Observe how this drastically alters the quality of the encounter, as if the other person is responding to something invisible in you. The principle, as above, so below, also helps us understand the transformative power of rituals and spiritual practices. When Jesus performed miracles, he was demonstrating how physical reality responds to elevated consciousness. It wasn't superstition, but a demonstration of the fundamental mechanics of how the universe works. Each prayer, each meditation, each act of consciousness is a stone thrown into the lake of reality, creating ripples that extend beyond what we can see. The Gnostic understanding of this principle reveals that the divine is not a distant Gnostic God, but an immanent presence that manifests through all levels of reality. This changes everything. Instead of seeking answers and solutions only in the external world, you can begin to work on the causal plane, your own consciousness. Establish the daily practice of vividly visualizing the ideal state you wish to manifest, not as something distant but as already present. Many occultist masters call this true magic, the art of consciously aligning the internal with the external to manifest change. Many know the story of Jesus calming the storm or walking on water, but few understand the true meaning of these events. These aren't just physical miracles, but powerful metaphors for mastering internal forces. The four elements, fire, water, air, and earth, represent archetypal aspects of our consciousness that need to be understood and balanced to achieve true enlightenment. In authentic Gnosticism, Jesus wasn't demonstrating supernatural powers, but teaching principles of psychic transformation. It's as if he was offering a map of the human psyche thousands of years before modern psychology. Each element corresponds to a facet of our internal experience. Fire represents our willpower, drive, transformation, and desire. Water symbolizes our emotions and intuition. Air represents our intellect and thoughts. And earth represents our connection to the physical and material. When Jesus walks on water during a storm, he's symbolically demonstrating mastery over the water element, our emotions, and the unconscious. How many times do we feel drowned, in turbulent emotions or adrift in seas of uncertainty? The message here is profound. Through consciousness awakening, we can learn to navigate even the stormiest waters without being swallowed by them. Jesus' mysticism wasn't about escaping the world, but mastering it from within. In practice, you can apply this when feeling emotionally overwhelmed. Stop, breathe deeply, and remember you aren't your emotions, but the consciousness observing them. This simple act of witnessing creates a space between you and the emotional storm, allowing you to walk on water instead of drowning in it. Try this next time a wave of anger or anxiety arises. Observe it without judgment, as Jesus observed the storm. The fire element represents our willpower, our capacity for transformation, and our passion for life. When Jesus says, "I have come to bring fire to the earth," in the Gospel of Luke, he isn't talking about literal destruction, but the transformative force that awakens dormant spirituality. It's the alchemical fire that purifies the human spirit. However, this same fire, when uncontrolled, can manifest as anger, impatience, or burnout. The challenge is learning to use this internal fire as a tool for transformation, not destruction. A practical exercise for working with your internal fire is identifying where you direct your energy and passion. Are you feeding projects that really matter or wasting your vital force on distractions? Consciously redirecting your energy to what genuinely feeds your soul is a way of practicing the alchemy Jesus taught. As he would say, "Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Your internal fire naturally follows what you value. The air element corresponds to intellect, thoughts and communication, how we process and share information. Jesus frequently challenged established thought patterns, provoking his listeners to transcend mental limitations. Air is the most subtle element, often representing the spiritual aspect of consciousness. When unbalanced, it manifests as overthinking, anxiety, or disconnection from reality. A Jesus aligned with the Gnostic God understood that the intellect should be a servant of higher wisdom, not a tyrannical master. The analytical mind needs to balance with intuition to access deeper truths. A powerful exercise for working with the air element is the practice of conscious breathing. As you inhale, imagine receiving clarity and wisdom. As you exhale, release limiting thoughts and worries. This simple act connects the physical, breathing, with the mental, attention, and spiritual intention, perfectly exemplifying the holistic occult approach Jesus taught. The earth element represents our connection to the physical world, our body, material resources, and stability. Jesus, contrary to what many later traditions suggested, didn't despise the material world. He saw it as an expression of the divine, not separate from it. The earth element challenge is finding balance, neither being trapped in materialism, nor completely denying our physical needs in the name of spirituality. The Bible controversy often portrays Jesus as someone disconnected from worldly matters, but Gnostic texts reveal a master who deeply understood the importance of integrating all aspects of human experience. To work with the earth element in your life, practice mindfulness in everyday activities, eating, walking, working. Recognize the sacredness of the physical world and how it serves as a vehicle for your awakening journey. When Jesus transformed bread into food for multitudes, he was symbolically demonstrating how elevated consciousness can transform the ordinary, earth, into extraordinary, spirit. True mastery, as Jesus demonstrated, isn't about dominating just one element, but harmoniously balancing all of them. It's an integration work where no aspect of human experience is denied or overvalued. Traditional Christian mythology often emphasizes certain aspects of Jesus' teachings at the expense of others, creating imbalances. However, Gnosticism's holistic vision invites us to recognize all dimensions of our existence. Imagine your consciousness as a garden where each element has its role. The sun's fire provides energy, water nourishes, air enables breathing, and earth offers foundation. All are essential. Try this daily exercise. In the morning, take a moment to check which element is dominating your experience and which might need attention. If you're too much in air, overthinking, practice earthly activities like gardening or walking. If you're too much in earth, rigidity, introduce water's flexibility through dance or relaxing baths. This regular self-diagnosis is the first step toward the kind of self-mastery Jesus exemplified. One of the most revolutionary revelations in Jesus' Gnostic teachings is that the kingdom of heaven isn't a physical place we go to after death, but a state of consciousness we can experience here and now. The kingdom of God is within you. This phrase, which survived even in the canonical Gospels, is a key to all original Christian mysticism. This changes everything. Instead of waiting for a distant reward or fearing a future judgment, true enlightenment is available in this moment. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus is even more explicit. The kingdom is spread over the earth, and men do not see it. This means divine reality isn't hidden in some distant celestial realm, but present everywhere, just waiting for us to awaken to perceive it. It's like living in a dark room with treasure, thinking it's empty, when all we need to do is turn on the light of consciousness. This understanding of the kingdom as an internal state fundamentally challenges religious institutions' power structure. If you can directly access the divine through transforming your own consciousness, what need is there for external intermediaries or authorities? That's why this Bible controversy has been systematically minimized throughout the centuries. When Jesus says the kingdom won't come in an observable manner, that people won't be able to say here it is or there it is, he's clearly pointing to a reality that transcends the physical and temporal. He's talking about an inner awakening, a change in how we perceive and interact with reality. In practice, you can begin exploring this dimension through moments of full presence in your daily life. For example, during a nature walk, stop for a few moments and simply be present, without judging, without naming, just being. In these moments of pure presence, you're experiencing a glimpse of the kingdom Jesus described. Uniting opposites within yourself is another key to understanding the kingdom as a state of consciousness. In authentic Gnosticism, Jesus teaches that we must integrate seemingly contradictory aspects of our nature to achieve completeness. The masculine and feminine, dark and light, material and spiritual. All these aspects shouldn't be seen as adversaries, but as complementary parts of a whole. This is so different from the dualistic view that dominated conventional Christianity. In the Gospel of Philip, the bridal chamber is a metaphor for this process of internal integration, where opposites unite. You can apply this principle by identifying areas in your life where internal conflict exists, perhaps between your intuition and reason, or between your worldly desires and spiritual aspirations. Instead of repressing one side in favor of the other, try honoring both, seeking a creative synthesis. This internal integration is what leads to the state of consciousness Jesus called the kingdom of heaven. The idea of the kingdom as a state of consciousness also explains why Jesus emphasized heart and mind transformation so much. He understood that our perception of reality is determined by our internal state. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. This isn't a promise for the future, but a psychological and spiritual reality. Heart purity here doesn't refer to conventional morality, but to internal clarity that allows us to see through illusion veils. The Gnostic God isn't hidden from us. We are hidden from it by layers of conditioning, limiting beliefs, and false identifications. True spiritual work consists of removing these veils to recognize what has always been present. A powerful exercise to experience this is self-questioning practice. Regularly ask yourself, who am I beyond my thoughts, emotions, social roles, and memories? Stay with this question without rushing to an intellectual answer, and you may experience glimpses of the inner kingdom. The realization that heaven is a state of consciousness also has profound implications for how we live our daily lives. If the kingdom is already here, spread over the earth as Jesus says, then each moment contains the possibility of awakening, and each interaction is an opportunity to manifest the divine. It's no longer about following rules to ensure a future reward, but about living from a state of presence aligned with our deepest nature. Traditional Christian mythology often transformed Jesus into a ticket to heaven, when in fact he was showing how to live heaven on earth. When he says, "I am the way," he isn't setting himself up as an idol for worship, but as an example of what each of us can become. Try this practice. Before sleeping, reflect on moments in your day when you felt deep peace, spontaneous joy, or genuine connection. These aren't just pleasant moments. They're glimpses of the kingdom of heaven, direct experiences of the reality Jesus described. By consciously recognizing them, you strengthen your ability to live them more fully. Now you know the secrets few have access to, the true magic of Jesus that was hidden for centuries. The question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you continue living in the world of illusion, blindly following external authorities, or will you awaken the Christ that dwells within you? Think about it. If Jesus really taught that the kingdom of heaven is within us, what reality are you creating with your thoughts at this very moment? If your internal states shape your external reality, how would your life be if you mastered the 4 elements of your consciousness? What if today was the day you decided to take the reins of your own alchemical transformation? Start by applying a single Gnostic teaching in your daily life and watch the changes happen. Want to continue this awakening journey? Subscribe to the channel right now and turn on notifications. Each video is a key to unlock more of your divine potential that has been hidden for too long.